All right, man, what a time it's been. I've not been here in a while. Ugh, gotta dust off the old microphone. But yeah, I guess we can get right back into it. Welcome everybody to the Living Proof podcast. I have returned out of the trenches of life. I guess I took I took a break because of Lent, not really because I needed to, but more because I wanted to, and it was good. It was nice. I came back earlier than I wanted to. Like, I thought Lent ended earlier than it did, and so I ended earlier than it did, so I got back on social media earlier. But I didn't start this until after Easter because I wanted to wait until after Easter. Hope everyone's Easter was great. I know mine was. I spent it with community here on campus, and I know a lot of people that went home. Hopefully you enjoyed time with your family and things of that nature. But I think that today I'm not going to talk about, the typical Easter, Jesus died and rose from the grave, blah, blah, blah. Although that is important. Maybe we'll get into that next week or something like that. Today I wanted to just, catch everybody up with where I've been, what I've been doing. And a little word that God spoke to me, I think about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. But yeah, what I've been doing, where I've been, school has been low-key kicking my butt. Not that I haven't been able to, fight back. It's just been a rough time for me academically, I suppose. It's, not always easy to overcome those challenges we face. There are classes that just really, really make you want to grab something and strangle it. But, gotta avoid those feelings. Gotta just roll with the punches and really remember that God is in control, regardless of whatever grade you get, regardless of, how you're doing in school. That being said, doesn't mean I'm not supposed to try. And I think not that I've been too complacent with my school life, but I feel like I could have been more involved, if that makes sense. I feel like I could have been more there this semester. A lot of my friends joke around with me about how I wasn't necessarily, or how I've missed so many discussions this week. And now people will text me and be like, hey, are you coming to discussion? Or I'll talk about it and be like, yeah, like you go. And I'm like, I didn't go for a couple of them, but part of it was beyond my control and part of it wasn't. Part of it was because I got injured in February, and part of it is just because I just mentally wasn't there. But speaking on that injury, I was playing volleyball all of February. Huge volleyball addict, if you didn't know. I've been playing more than ever, and some people would say I suck, some people would say I'm good. I think low-key I'm below average, to be honest. There's a lot more I can improve on, and I try whenever I go, but I don't practice enough to actually improve enough. Anyway, as I was playing in February, there was this pain in my chest that I couldn't quite figure out where it was from, and it would come and go as I play. It wouldn't be necessarily persistent until later, but it would come and go, wouldn't really be that much of an issue, right? Then, turns out I go the week of Valentine's Day, I try and push through, and I'm trying to start swimming again. So I started swimming that week again, and all of a sudden, I'm feeling this huge, not pain in my chest, but it's all throughout my upper body now. And I'm like, okay, kind of weird, but I can still move around. When I swim, it's fine, so I'm going to keep going. Kept pushing myself till that Friday, Valentine's Day, when I went to play volleyball that evening. And all of a sudden, I went to receive a ball, and the ball hit. It just shot. It was like a chain reaction of pain just throughout my entire body. And then all of a sudden, couldn't move my arm. So I had to walk around like this, like an NPC. And every step hurt, every walk hurt. I tried to lay down. That was a terrible idea. I almost couldn't lay down, but Ended up going to the ER, and they said that I had chest wall damage, which I had to get taken care of. And so that whole week, the week after that, I was trying to recover, and so I didn't really go to class, didn't really go to lecture, I wasn't really locked in. And ever since then, it's been like, I've been wary of it, but it hasn't affected me that much. But it's still something that's prominent in my head, like, okay, an injury like that could happen at any time. And so I've been trying to recover from that, as well as trying to recover mentally. I think in high school, I was always a great student. And this will tie into the spiritual stuff as well. But in high school, I was a great student. Or I thought I was a great student, I should say. And I got A's without relatively putting in work and things of that nature. Coming here, this obviously is not high school. There are going to be different things that I'll have to do. I'll have to adjust. I'll have to adapt. And part of me is now having to adapt to not receiving A's on every single thing, to receiving B's, to receiving C's, and trying to overcome the mental lies saying that I am not smart, that I am not able to do any of this. And I was struggling a lot with that last semester as well. This semester, it happened more in the middle because I had started out fine, and then when the middle exams hit, all of a sudden, people were saying, oh, this is so easy, I got a good grade on this, and I didn't. So now I'm thinking I'm the outlier and that I'm the issue, when before it was more of like a harder curriculum and you have to adjust. Now I'm sitting here thinking that, oh, it's my problem and I have to change, I have to do something better because everyone else is doing fine and it's just me not doing it now. So there was a lot of overcoming that, and that caused me to miss a lot of my discussions and a lot of my lectures. I stopped being motivated essentially, and I'm thankful that it was during Lent because one, I had time to go to God in that, and two, it didn't affect anything I was doing like this podcast or anything otherwise social media wise because I wasn't on social media. So I'm thankful that it happened during then and not now because I don't want to be burnt out while I'm making these videos. That doesn't make any sense. But I'm thankful that God was with me through it all. And something that I realized that is more for scripture than it is for here is that I am not going to fit in with everybody else, and I'm not going to be like everybody else. Like, we're called to live our own life individually, but even in your faith, in your walk with Christ, you're going to have different convictions, and you're going to have different paths that you go down. Sure, we're all going down the narrow path towards the Lord. We're all walking that harder route. We're all fighting temptation and fighting evil, fighting, the devil, because that's who our fight is against. We fight not against flesh, but against principalities, against powers, against evil spirits. So we're not really fighting ourselves. We're not really thinking that this battle is all about us. But at the end of the day, we shouldn't be comparing ourselves to other people. Small group that we were talking about, or in my small group Bible study, we were talking about, I think last Wednesday, Paul was writing a letter to the Corinthians, and he was talking about how the church in Macedonia was very enthusiastic about giving and they wanted to encourage the church in Corinth to be like the church in Macedonia and continue their giving because they were eager about it. But after things maybe didn't work well for them financially, all of a sudden they're like, oh, the comparison, or oh, look at Macedonia, look at what they're doing. They don't have a lot and they're still giving. So something we were talking about was, why would you compare it to someone? Why would you compare yourself to someone when, we shouldn't really be comparing ourselves to others? And something we were thinking about is how that comparison that Paul made there was not to bring them shame and not to belittle them. A lot of times we compare ourselves to other people. I'm comparing myself to my other students, my peers, my friends, and I'm seeing how they're doing, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, yeah, I'm worse than them. I'm better. I'm worse off. I suck. This is just not for me. I can't do what they do. Like, we compare ourselves in a mindset of the world. We compare ourselves in a way that brings about shame, that brings about guilt, that brings about sorrow, right? Paul was comparing the churches together, not to bring about sorrow, but to bring about change, to inspire them to action, to remind them of their eagerness in the beginning, and to encourage them to be eager now, because they still have the desire to give, even if things aren't so beneficial for them. So now I'm taking that mindset and thinking, okay, when I compare myself to others, or when people compare me to others, when my parents compare me to my brother, it's not to bring me sorrow. It's to remind me that we literally come from the same upbringing. Not me and my friends, but me and my brother. We come from the same upbringing. So why anything he is able to do, granted there are differences in genetics and whatever, but anything he's able to do with the education he's gained, I should be able to do the same thing. not because I have the same path as him, not because I have the same gifts as him, but because there is a certain mindset that he has that I'm also encouraged to have. The mindset of the Church of Macedonia was, okay, we need to be earnest in giving whatever is acceptable for us, not giving a certain amount every single time, and if we don't have that amount, then we don't give. We give whatever is acceptable for us, whatever we're eager to give. In the same sense, I should be eager to put in as much work as I am able to put in based on me, not based on everybody else, not based on what my friends are doing. Oh, they only studied 1 hour, so I'm going to study maybe 2 hours or maybe an hour and a half, and I should be done. No, if I need to study for 4 or 5 hours, then I need to study for 4 or 5 hours. But if I understand it, if I get it down, that's me. That's what I have to do for that. And comparing myself to them, I'm going to be like, if they're doing that, they're studying for 1 hour, I'm studying for 4, and I still can't do as well as them. There may be some sorrow, there may be some sadness. I feel like you have a right to be upset if you don't do as well as you want. But don't make other people's goals your goals. Don't make other people's standards your standards, right? If I'm looking at my own personal growth and my own personal development and trying to line it up with somebody next to me, we don't have the same landmarks, we don't have the same milestones. So what they're going to do, to me, it may look impressive, but if I strive for their path, I'm going to find it a lot harder than just going down the route I'm meant to go down. Because I'm not that person. I don't know what they've been through. I don't know their life. I'm not going to be able to perform the way they perform or do what they do inherently because I'm not them. Can I perform the way I want to do, which may be the way they're performing, based on my own habits and my own methods and my own convictions? Yeah, that's perfectly fine. But when I compare myself to them, try and do what they do, and when it doesn't work, I get frustrated and lash out and angry. That's just not, it doesn't make any sense. You're not them, so obviously what they're doing may not work for you. Obviously what Grant is doing may not work for me. If you don't know, Grant is my brother. Obviously what he's doing may not work for me if I'm not the same brain as him, the same growing up, the same genetics. But the mindset that he has, that's something you can have. The mindset to do his best, that's something I can have. I can have the mindset to do my best. The mindset to be an earnest giver of the church, I can have that mindset to be an earnest giver for my church according to what I want, according to what I can give. I can have the mindset to be an academic weapon according to what is an academic weapon to me. Some people may think that, okay, if you get all A's, you're being an academic weapon. I might not be capable of all A's, and that just may not be for me. I'm not saying that God wants us to fail in life. No, I didn't say you don't have to fail, but I'm saying sometimes we do our best, we get a B plus, we get a B, we get a B minus. But if that's what we're capable of doing, if that's what putting all our effort in gets us, then there should be no reason to be upset. There should be no reason to compare myself to another and be like, oh, they did it this way and I did it this way and I got a lower grade than them. Oh, I should just stop trying to do it my way. No, keep fleshing out your idea, because if there's improvement, if I got a C minus before and I get a B minus now, clearly there's some growth and clearly some change in there was beneficial. Sure, the content may be easier and there may be an easier unit or the test may have been curved a little bit. Who cares? Improvement is improvement. Something you did, something you changed is right, and you should stick by that. Not out of comparison, but out of pursuit of your own personal goals. So that's been a lot on my mind recently, and I've been more motivated as of the past couple of weeks because that thought has been keeping me going in the sense of, okay, some things have to change, especially with a lot of the work I'm going to have to put in next semester and even over the summer. It's going to be a lot of discipline and motivation, and if I don't have that now for myself, not comparing to other people, but for myself, then I'm never going to see the results that I want to see. I'm never going to be my best self because I'll always be trying to compare myself to somebody else, and that's not who I am. I'm not somebody else. I am not a clone of another individual. I am me. I am Landon. I am going to do what Landon is going to do. I'm going to do what God has called me to do. And sometimes that may not always line up with what I want to do. Like sometimes the way life happens isn't always the way we want it to go, right? I think I was at activation service yesterday, and one of the points that was mentioned is that sometimes we limit how God can move in our lives because we have this preconceived notion of how he should move. And when he doesn't move the way we expect him to, when he doesn't fit into our expectations, we then say, God, you can't move in my life. We lose our faith. We're a little less faithful. And God moves to those who are faithful. God marveled at those who have great faith, right? If we don't have great faith, then I did say there's no point in God trying to make himself known, because I think we were talking about in Mark 6 how God was marveling then at their unbelief, and he couldn't do any great work save for saving a couple people. And after that, he went on to the next town and preached to them. So if you have unbelief, God will preach to those around you. He will not preach to you, because a wise word is lost on deaf ears. I don't know where that's from. Maybe I heard it from my parents. Maybe it's from the Bible. I don't know. But a wise word is lost on deaf ears. So no matter how much wisdom or knowledge the Lord preaches, if you are unwilling to believe it, if you have your own preconceived notion of what he should say to you or how your life should go, then you're not going to be very happy when what he tells you is not what you want to do. Same way with my academics or with my life. If I have a preconceived notion of how my life should go, of how my grades should go, and someone's telling me something different, but whether it be God or a professor or my friends or my family, I'm going to be a little bit upset about that. And I might be a little bit offended. I might be a little bit, sorrowful. I might be a little down in the dumps. But I think going into that, you got to have an open mind about where God is calling you. And you have to allow him to move. Allow him to move the way he wants, not constrict him to move the way you want, if that makes sense. There has to be some sacrifice in allowing God to work the way he does, right? I can't give everything into everything and still have God fit within my little norms of expectation, right? I have to give up some things in order for God to move in my life. My life can't be comprised of 10% this, 10% that, all the way up to 100%. And one of those 10% being God moving the way I want him to make all these other 10% work. And all of a sudden he doesn't move like that. And my 90% aren't going to work because that 10%, the one way I expected God to move for my life to be down to the atom perfect, is not going to happen. So all of a sudden my plans are up in the air and I'm looking at God like, hey, why are you doing this? I thought you were supposed to be for me. He's for you, but because you've already set out a plan and he didn't fit within your set out plan, you're going to get mad at him for him not working your plan, which by nature is a sinful plan, by nature is a flawed plan, and by nature will fail ultimately. So him not doing that is probably in your best interest. And so when he moves, when he acts, we need to allow him room to act. We need to allow him, space to get into our life. We can't fill up everything and then only give him a certain range to move in, that 10% for him to move. We got to give him maybe 20%, maybe 30%. Give up the other 10% that you already had planned out. Just give it to God and say, hey, I know that I expected you to move within the 10%. I know you might want to use 30 or 40%. I'm going to give that up to you. And however you want to move, I'll work around that. I'll build my other 30%, my other 20%, my other 10 off of the 10 or 20 or 30 that you give in. And all of a sudden, your life is looking a lot more aligned with Christ's will, in the sense of you're allowing him to move the way he wants to move, and you're moving based off of his will. You're not moving based off of your will and expecting him to act on that. He's acting on his own will. You should also be acting on that will. So then all of a sudden you are all acting as one, if that makes sense. I say all that to say that my life has not been going my way. I'm going to be 100% honest. My life has not been going my way. There have been a lot of things this semester that I just wish did not happen. I wish I didn't get injured. I wish I got better grades on my exams. I wish I still talked to some of my other friends, and I wish I had more time to hang out with my friends. I wish for a lot of stuff. Not that I wish, but there is a lot of things that could have been different. That could be similar to last year. That could be similar to freshman year. That could be similar to high school. But they're not. God made that way for a reason. God put me in this position for a reason. And I'm going to allow him to move. I'm going to allow him to have the space that he needs. Allow him to have the room that he needs to work. There's a song that says, I will make room for you to do whatever you want to. Shake up the ground of all my tradition. Break down the walls of all my religion. Your way is better. Sometimes we build up walls and barriers so that God can only move within the certain area that we called him to move in. If I want God to interrupt say I want God to get into my entire life, right? I want him to be in every single aspect of my life. And I only give him room to work in my academic life and, of course, the spiritual life. My social life, he's not going to be there. My mental health, he's not going to be there. My other situations, he's just not going to be there, because I only want him to move in my academics. I only want him to move in the church. I only want him to move in community. I only want him to move in my Bible studies. I don't want him to move when I'm going day to day and I see someone on the street that needs help. I don't want him to move when I'm talking to my family and they say something that upsets me. I don't want him to move in those areas, so he's not going to. I need to allow him to work in all those areas in order for me to actually get what I need, if that makes sense. In order for him to work the way that he wants to work, I need to allow him to affect every part of my life. It needs to be like a virus that just seeps into my whole body. I can't control it. I can't stop it. I'm going to let it do its thing and work with it. That's how God should be in our lives. And I'm not saying God's a virus that's going to poison you and kill you. No, God is a virus. Yes, sure, we'll put it like that. But he is a virus that will lift you up, that will fill you with the Spirit, that will fill you with love, peace, and joy. He's a virus that you want to get. And I'm not going to call God, I'm going to stop calling him a virus. It's an infection, a positive infection, an infection that will only benefit you, that will only lift you up. And so, at the end of the day, you will only be seeing the results of the Lord. You'll only be seeing the Lord in your life. And he won't just be in your school. He won't just be in your church. He'll be everywhere. Everyone will see him through you, and you'll see him in everyone, if that makes sense. And something that's been helping me with that recently is Ephesians 6, verses 13 through 17, which is putting on the armor of God, right? I was talking about this with a couple of people recently, and God hit me with a revelation like a week ago that I've been mentioning, but I was reading that Ephesians chapter, right? And all of a sudden, I hear people talking. All of a sudden, the reality came to me that when you're putting on clothes, right? When I put on this shirt, when I put on these shorts, when I put on this hat, I don't even wear hats usually, but when I put on this hat, I didn't put this on at 2:08 p.m., which is the time right now. I didn't put it on at 4:33 p.m. I didn't put it on at 11:06 p.m., right? I put on my clothes for the day when I get up and get ready for the day. I put on my clothes at the beginning of the day, wear them throughout the day, and sure, I may take them off when I'm getting ready to go to bed, but that's not, let's just say for all intents and purposes, I don't take those clothes off. I get ready, I get up in the day, I put them on, and I keep them on the rest of the day, right? When we're talking about the armor of God is something that you need to put on every single day, right? It's armor, right? It's the belt of truth, helmet of salvation, breastplate of righteousness, the shoes of peace, the sword of the Spirit, and what am I forgetting? Belt, chest plate, shoes, sword, helmet, shield. There we go. Shield of faith. Like, putting on all those things is something that you need to do daily. It's not something that you put on, oh, I remember about it in the middle of the day. Let me put on the armor of God. Oh, I remember about it late at night. It's okay. I'll put them on tomorrow. Forget about it. Or you have an interaction with someone and like, oh, I should have had the armor of God on before. I should have been more Christ-like or more loving. I need to think about that later. And then you just kind of move on. No. It's something that you should don on at the beginning of every day, right? The only way to let that clothing be seen, like, people will see the clothes you wear every day. They're not going to see it if you're not putting it on. They're not going to see it if it's not on the entire day. There's going to be parts of you that will be exposed to different people if you're not wearing it the whole day. Different people will see different parts of you, is what I should say. They'll see clothing of the world, and then another group will see clothing of the Spirit. And obviously those two don't mix. So either you put on your outfit in the middle of the day and you didn't remember to put it on in the morning, or you just don't put on the outfit and all of a sudden you're just wearing worldly clothes in a spiritual environment, which doesn't really matter. But what matters is that you didn't put on the spiritual clothes at all. Like, every day I've been waking up because of that. Every day I've been waking up and quoting Ephesians 6, 13 through 17. And it hasn't really, like, I've seen it change. I'm not going to say that it hasn't really done anything. It hasn't really been anything crazy is what I'm going to say. Like, it's a prayer. I say the verses. I pray about it. It's nothing crazy, long, and elaborate, like 30-minute prayer. No, it's just like a quick 5 minutes in the morning, quick 5-10 minutes. But that prayer then sets me up for the rest of the day. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, hey, maybe I'm not treating this person with, maybe I'm not inspiring peace in them. Maybe I'm not sharing the good news. Maybe I should help them out and be a light to them so that they can understand that there's peace and hope in God. Hey, this person's trying to insult me, but luckily for me, I have the shield of faith. My faith defends me from all these insults, all these attacks that Satan's trying to throw at me. I'm just going to brush it off and remember that I have salvation in Christ, which protects the mind. So your mind doesn't get affected by what the enemy throws at you. All of a sudden that someone's trying to attack you as well, you need to fight off the demons. You got the sword of the Spirit with you. You have the word of God to encourage you, to lift you up, to be a weapon against the enemy. And all of a sudden, these things that aren't really as important, because when I was growing up, I didn't see the armor of God as something that was important. Like, I saw it, we read it, we went over it, and we moved on. If anything, I would have thought that something like, I don't know, Proverbs is, there's a lot of wisdom in Proverbs, but I think the armor of God is sometimes skipped over because it's just putting on the armor of God, yeah, I put on these things and I don't really meditate on it, right? I think starting my day with that and meditating on that every day has caused me to think about it as I go throughout my day. I'll be about to say something and my mind will just protect me and be like, that doesn't coincide with your salvation. That doesn't coincide with your righteousness. Protect your heart, guard against unrighteousness. And all of a sudden I'm just going to be like, nope, not going to say that. Even if I had to say it out loud, I had to stop myself out loud and literally say, nope, not going to say that. Because sometimes it's just catching a thought before it's exuded, if that is the right way to use exuded. I don't even know. My vocabulary's been kind of bad lately because of all the brain rot on Instagram. That's why I needed to get off. I'm glad I got off for a month, because when I got back on, all of it is just invincible memes and the dumbest things I've ever seen in my entire life. It'll be one clip of a meme, and the next 5 seconds, there's like at least 100 clips that just play through for like not even a millisecond. I don't know why people do this, but like anyone will say, are you sure? And I just start losing my mind. But anyway, I'm not saying that to say that you shouldn't pray long prayers in the morning. If that's what you want to do, that's perfectly fine. I'm not saying this to say that there's any right or wrong way to start your day. But I think that starting my day by remembering what I'm supposed to be putting on, remembering how I'm supposed to be defending myself in this battle, because we're in a battle against, Satan and the evil powers and evil spirits. We're not in a battle against my brother who's living down the hall or my roommate who comes in here every now and then and I get upset at him for some stuff for whatever reason. I'm not in the battle against them. They're not my real enemy. I have no reason to be upset with them. I have a reason to be upset with Satan, to be upset with the spirits, to be upset with the devil. I have no reason to be upset with him. Upset with the sin that they do? Yeah, sure. I can talk about that all day. But I have no reason to be upset with my fellow brother and sister in Christ. Like, God made them the same way he made me. They are the same individual. I have no reason to be upset with them. And that's just reminding myself that when I put on that armor of God, I'm not going into the day thinking about, oh, yeah, I got to defend myself against the people around me. They're going to insult me and slander me. No, I'm not. That's not what we're fighting against. The armor of God's not for people. The armor of God is for the spirits. The armor of God is for the enemy. Ephesians 6:13 says, therefore put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to withstand the enemy in the time of evil. Resist the enemy in the time of evil. It doesn't say resist your fellow brother and sister. It doesn't say resist a human. It doesn't say resist your teacher or your professor or your friends or your classmates or your TAs or your CAs or whatever. It says resist the enemy in the time of evil, the time of temptation, the time of pride, the time of lust, the time of envy, the time of greed, the time of evil. That is not when you wake up in the morning and you find out that your best friend just, I don't know, lost $100 or something and they're mad at the world. That's not a reason for you to also get mad at the world. You can be upset with them, but your battle's not against the $100 that got stolen, bro. Your battle's not against the person that stole the $100. Your battle is against the enemy. And maybe the enemy made them do it. Sin made them do it, yeah. You can be upset with the sin. That is no reason to treat the person that way, bro. And that's what I've been trying to think about as I close out this semester. The weather's nice. It's got you feeling nicer. Sure, when the winter is here, it's dreary, it's bleak, and you don't really feel as jubilant as you do, when it's springtime, when it's summertime. But just because it's nice outside doesn't mean you have to be nice. Just because it's cold outside doesn't mean you have to be mean. Like, your mood should not be dependent on the weather, and you shouldn't. Sure, it's easier, but that doesn't make it any less or more right. I should still be nice to people even when it's not closing out the school year. I should be nice to people even when it's starting the school year, when it's in the middle of the school year. Like, I have reason to be nice to people because of my salvation. And that's clearing my mind because of my righteousness, guarding my heart. And that just ties into so many things. I didn't realize how much the armor of God actually protected you until I started thinking about it every time I went into a conversation after saying it in the morning. You think about it every single time and you're like, wow, this is really useful for literally every situation. Now, Sword of the Spirit, that piece of armor is probably going to take a long time. I'm not going to say that memorizing the word is going to take forever for everybody, but Jesus in the wilderness quoted scripture, and I'm not saying, obviously he knows the word is God, the word was with God, he knows the word, but he's not, like, he didn't spend time memorizing it. But you have to know there's Bible verses for literally every situation you could possibly fall into, temptation-wise, sin-wise. There is no verse in the Bible that cannot. There is no verse in the Bible that will not apply to at least one situation you've gone through in your entire life. When you're like faced with sin and trial and tribulation and stuff like that, there is not a single verse in the Bible that will, like, there is not a verse in the whole Bible that won't apply to that situation. There has to be at least one verse. There is definitely at least one verse. And so, obviously, you're not going to know every single verse for every single situation. But there are verses that are general. There are verses that are specific. But there are verses that are general. And I think starting to get those in your head, like me getting the verses of the armor of God in my head, those are pretty general. Because, you know, you remember your righteousness. There are many verses in the Bible about God's righteousness for the breastplate. But they're subconsciously in my head. Sure, I can't quote them all out like Bible quiz, but they're subconsciously in my head. I think about it when I think about the armor piece. I think about my salvation when I think about the armor piece, the helmet. I think about the truth that God speaks when I think about the belt. I think about the peace and the good news and the gospel when I think about the shoes. I think about the Bible verses that I actually have memorized when I think about the sword. Like, there are verses that I think about, and just because I don't have it memorized word for word, bar for bar, doesn't mean that they won't influence my conscience in some way, shape, or form. The Spirit is speaking to me through all these memories, through all these subconscious things that I have. And I don't even know I have them until I start thinking about it, start thinking about the armor, and all of a sudden it gets invoked. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even know I had the memory of this verse. And all of a sudden I'm stopping myself from saying an insulting word to my friend. Like, it just helps you hold yourself accountable. And whether you realize it or not, it starts to impact you in many different ways. And sure, I've still been a little bit sarcastic at times. Sure, I've been a little bit, rude. I will say I am human. I've been rude. I've been sarcastic. I've been mean. I've been angry. I've lashed out. I've cursed. But I'd say it's significantly gotten better when I start every day by thinking about what battle I'm actually in and how I protect myself from it. Because all of a sudden I'm not here getting upset that my friend, just said an insulting joke at me. I'm over here thinking about how I can forgive this person and not be mad at them, but be mad at the sin. I'm thinking about the sin instead of the sinner. I'm thinking all the time, I'm just thinking about, from a spiritual perspective, what is wrong. Sin, evil, temptation, and the devil. I'm not thinking about my friend who, may have made me angry once or twice. I'm not thinking about them because they're not what's inherently evil. They're my friend. They are made in the image of God. They are, inherently evil. Yeah, but because of sin. The sin is the evil part, not them. God made us all in the beginning. He didn't make us evil. I know that much. He gave us free will and we chose evil, but he didn't give us evil. He didn't make us evil. He gave us free will. And so I have the free choice to either love my enemy or hate my enemy, love my friend or hate my friend. I'm going to choose to love my friend because that's what God talks about. I'm going to choose to love my enemy too because that's what God talks about. Matthew 5:44. I'm going to love my enemy because God exemplified that that's what I should do. And that's using the sword of spirit to counteract the attacks of the devil, saying, using the shield of faith and the sword of the spirit to counteract the devil saying, oh, your friend slandered you. You should be mad at him. You should insult him. You should be mean to him, blah, blah, blah. No, I have no reason to do that. One, because you're not spitting me lies. I'm going to remember my salvation, guard my heart. I'm going to remember my righteousness, guard my heart. I'm going to have peace by remembering the gospel. And I'm going to attack that by saying, no, the Bible tells me I should love my enemy. See how that all just coincides into a nice little process? Like, oh my God, it just relieves the stress of your brain because you're not only thinking about how people do you wrong anymore. You're thinking of a completely different perspective, and everything just seems lighter because God is there in the interim. It's not just you on your own trying to fend for yourself and trying to defend yourself from allegations and whatnot and who did this and blah blah blah. And it's just like, whew. Man, I'm tired. But it's just like so much more. There's so much more depth behind thinking spiritually than it is thinking in the worldly perspective. And I think starting my days off like that has definitely helped. So if you ever feel like you need to just start your day off with verses, whether it be the armor of God or whether it be the fruit of the Spirit, whether it be, the Sermon on the Mount, however you want to start your day by shifting your perspective to think about God. Start your day by shifting your perspective to think about how he can move in your life and how you don't want to put restrictions on him. How you can let him move in your life, I should say. And all of a sudden, I think you'll start being a little bit nicer to your neighbors, a little bit nicer to people that do you wrong. sometimes I think to myself when people ask me situations like, oh, if someone did this to your future child, or if someone killed your brother, how would you act? And part of me is like, I don't know. And a lot of sometimes I say a lot that I don't know if I would forgive them. And I don't know if anyone's ever questioned that when they talk to me, because most times the people that ask that aren't Christian. So my first initial thought is to forgive them. And that comes from, being in constant perspective of scripture, saying I should love my neighbor and forgive those who have wronged me. But to someone else, it might just be the initial reaction to be like, oh, I don't have to forgive them, but I can not do anything to them. Like, my first initial thought is to try and forgive that person, because what they did is from sin. It's not from them. Sure, they did it, but sin is the ultimate enemy. The devil's the ultimate enemy. I'm not looking at him and thinking he's my enemy. No, it's the sin. And so whenever I get into hypothetical situations like that, it's hard to really think about how I'm looking at it and how I'm approaching it. But I think that as I develop more and more of my Christian spirit and my Christian conscience and my relationship with God and adhering to the Bible and stuff like that, I think that the answer to that question will come clearly to me at some point in time. Hopefully I will be able to say that I can forgive them, and I can say that honestly, but it'll really depend on how close I want to be with God and how right I see God's righteousness, if that makes sense. But yeah, just wanted to catch you guys up with how I was doing and what I've been up to the past couple weeks, just literally recovery, mental and physical, and wanted to share that little tidbit about the armor of God and what I learned yesterday about faith, because all of that goes hand in hand to further your relationship with God and to further your trust in Him, right? If I'm using the armor of God, I'm allowing God to interrupt my day-to-day process and say, hey, respond this way. Hey, think about this. Hey, do that. The Spirit is speaking to me. It's not just me on my own. And if I'm allowing God to move in my life, that's giving Him trust to be in control of things that I would low-key want to be in control of myself. Like, say my academics or the way my life's going to go for the next couple of months with apartments and internships and all that stuff. I low-key want to be in control of that. I want to have the reins. I want to be in power. I can't do that. I can't always be in power. So part of that relationship is trusting God to be, to be that sovereign God, to be that person who's going to help us and going to really lead me in the right direction. And so I think, just to wrap everything up, give God your faith, give Him your trust, but not because you want Him to work within your means. Give Him your trust so that He can work the way He wants to work. And give Him your trust to work in your life, to work in your heart, by incorporating scripture, incorporating meditation, incorporating prayer at the start of your day to switch your perspective. And yeah, that is my final tidbit today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. I will be back next week. We are back in regular weekly schedule, so hopefully I'll see what happens in the summer. I should be still doing it, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there, as they say. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys next week. Stay blessed. Have a great rest of your day. It's a beautiful day outside. Go outside. It will be Thursday. Go outside. It's still nice. And yeah, see you guys. I don't know how I keep getting like throat congestion. Not even congestion. My throat is itching, bro, and I can't scratch it. Like, it's just not gonna work. It's just not gonna work. Are you sure? Are you sure? Like, the brain rot is consuming.